The rain had a rhythm that day, drumming against the window panes of our small but cozy apartment in Brooklyn. I remember John sitting on the worn-out sofa, his shoulders slumped, the weight of the world resting on him. The letter from the bank was crumpled in his hand, a stark reminder of our collapsing reality. The construction company he'd poured his life into was gone, and with it, our future. He looked at me, his eyes full of a pain I pretended to understand. "I don't know what we're going to do, Mia," he said, his voice a whisper. "Everything is gone. All of it." I walked over to him, my hand a comforting weight on his back. I could feel the tension, the despair, but all I really felt was a cold calculation. This wasn't the life I'd signed up for. Not the one I'd dreamt of since I was a little girl growing up in a tiny apartment in Queens. I had promised myself I would never be poor again. I'd found my ticket out with John, or so I thought. He was supposed to be the one who gave me stability, a life of comfort, not this endless cycle of worry and struggle. I leaned in, my voice soft, but firm. "It's going to be okay, John," I lied, my lips brushing his ear. "I'll never leave you." The words were a promise, a vow I knew I would break. As his arms wrapped around me, clinging to my false hope, I was already picturing my life without him, a life free from the suffocating weight of his failure. The divorce papers were already sitting on my desk, ready to be served. The sound of the rain was my only witness. It was a cold, cruel plan, and I was ready to execute it. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. The next morning, the rain was gone, replaced by a gray, unforgiving sky. I'd prepared a simple breakfast for John, a last act of kindness that felt more like a performance than a genuine gesture. He was still in a daze, barely touching his coffee. The silence was heavy, a prelude to the storm I was about to unleash. I waited until he was about to leave for a pointless meeting with his lawyer. This was the cleanest, most efficient way. "John," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil within me. "I need to talk to you about something." He looked up, his face tired. "What is it, honey?" I placed the stack of papers on the table between us. His eyes widened as he saw the words, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage," at the top. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and fragile. He looked from the papers to me, his expression a mixture of disbelief and profound hurt. What is this, Mia?" he stammered. "It's over, John," I said, my voice flat. "I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this." I had rehearsed the lines, making them sound as impersonal as possible. The truth was, his failure was a personal affront to my ambitions. I had loved the idea of him, the successful, stable man. The reality was a burden I was no longer willing to carry. His pleas, his questions, his genuine pain. I met it all with a cold, impenetrable wall. My escape was all that mattered. The fallout was swift and brutal. John moved out, his departure a quiet, heartbreaking affair. He took only a few boxes, leaving behind a home that now felt like a hollow shell. I moved on almost immediately. With the little savings I had and a small inheritance from my grandmother, I found a new place in a sleek, modern building in Manhattan. The windows overlooked a bustling, vibrant street, a stark contrast to the quiet despair of our old Brooklyn apartment. My new life was a carefully constructed facade. I took up a job in a high-end real estate firm, using my sharp wit and ruthless ambition to climb the ladder. The hours were long, but the work was a distraction, a way to build the future I had always wanted, a future free from the shadow of John's failure. I began to date, meeting men who embodied the success and stability I craved. Each one was a new opportunity, a new stepping stone. My friends were supportive, or so I thought. They listened to my version of events, the one where I was the victim, forced to leave a man who had lost everything. They saw me as strong, resilient. No one saw the cold, calculated truth. I was the architect of my own destiny, and I had no room for sentimentality. I'd made a choice, a selfish one, but one I believed was necessary. The new apartment, with its pristine white walls and gleaming floors, felt like a monument to my victory. The whispers started subtly. A call from a mutual friend, a question about John. "I heard he's not doing so well, Mia. Are you sure you're okay with this?" And then another, from an old college friend who had seen him at a coffee shop. "He looked so thin, Mia, so sad. He really loved you." I brushed them all off, telling myself they didn't understand. They didn't see the years of stress, the silent anxieties, the disappointment. But their words, like little thorns, began to prick at me. I was at a networking event one evening, sipping champagne, when I saw John's former business partner, Mark. He came over, his expression grim. "I saw John the other day," he said, not mincing words. "He's lost everything, the business, his house, even his will to fight." He paused, his eyes fixed on mine. "You know, Mia," he continued, "John didn't tell you the whole story. He spent a year trying to salvage the company, pouring his own money into it, trying to save jobs. He didn't want to worry you. He was trying to protect you." The words hit me like a physical blow. The careful narrative I'd built began to crack. My perfectly clean, logical decisions suddenly seemed stained, ugly. The image of John, slumped on the sofa, his eyes full of pain, was no longer a symbol of his failure. It was a testament to his desperation, his quiet struggle to shield me from the truth. The champagne tasted bitter in my mouth, and for the first time, a sliver of genuine guilt pierced through my carefully constructed armor. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. My guilt grew, a persistent shadow in my otherwise perfect life. It started manifesting in small ways. I'd see a couple holding hands and remember the simple joy of walking with John. I'd pass a construction site and feel a pang of remorse for all the dreams he'd shared with me about his work. The shiny newness of my apartment began to feel cold and sterile. The success I was building seemed hollow without someone to share it with. One evening, I found myself walking through our old neighborhood. The air was crisp, the streets quiet. I passed the little coffee shop where John and I used to spend Sunday mornings. I saw him through the window, sitting at our old corner table. He was alone, staring into a cup of coffee. He was thinner, his face etched with a sadness that went bone deep. My heart clenched. I hesitated, my hand on the doorknob. Should I go in? What would I say? I hadn't come to apologize. I had come to see him, to confirm the rumors. As I watched him, another woman sat down at his table. She was younger, with a kind face and warm eyes. She reached across the table and placed her hand over his. He looked up, and a small, genuine smile touched his lips. It was a smile I hadn't seen in months. I turned and walked away, a new kind of pain blooming in my chest. It wasn't just guilt anymore. It was the sharp, undeniable sting of jealousy. The jealousy became a venom, poisoning my thoughts. I found myself searching for him online, checking his social media, trying to find out who the woman was. I couldn't understand it. He had lost everything, yet he had found someone. Someone who seemed to genuinely care for him, not for what he could provide. This realization was a bitter pill to swallow. My carefully crafted image of a man who deserved to be left alone crumbled. One rainy Saturday, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it to find John standing there, his face solemn. My heart pounded. "What are you doing here, John?" I asked, my voice shaky. "I need to talk to you, Mia," he said, stepping inside without being invited. He wasn't the broken man I had seen in the coffee shop. He was resolute, calm. "I found out something about the company." He paused, looking at me with a steady gaze. The final audit report came back. It wasn't just a market downturn. It was sabotage. My business partner, Mark, embezzled funds and framed me for it. The world tilted on its axis. The man I had seen at the networking event, the one who had made me feel guilty, was the one responsible for everything. A cold dread seeped into my bones. John continued, his voice devoid of anger, only a quiet resolve. The woman you saw me with, she's a forensic accountant. She's been helping me. We're going to get justice. He looked at me, his eyes now holding a question I couldn't answer. I wanted you to know the truth, not because I expect anything from you, but because you deserve to know what you walked away from. He turned and left, leaving me standing in the silence of my perfect, empty apartment. The truth was a heavy burden, a weight I couldn't shake. Mark's betrayal and John's quiet struggle to protect me played over and over in my mind. The carefully constructed narrative of my life, the one where I was the pragmatic survivor, was now a complete fiction. I began to see my own actions for what they were, a ruthless act of abandonment. My ambition, once a source of pride, now felt like a monster I had created, a force that had destroyed the one good thing in my life. My success at work began to sour. Every sale felt tainted, every commission a reminder of the money I had prioritized over my husband. I couldn't focus. I'd sit at my desk, staring out the window, picturing John and the new woman, the two of them working together, building a new life, a life where he was vindicated, and I was just a footnote. I started to withdraw from my friends. Their compliments about my strength and resilience now felt like a mockery. I would nod and smile, but inside, I was a hollow echo of the person I used to be. The guilt was no longer a shadow. It was a screaming presence, a constant reminder of my selfishness. I had built a life of comfort, but it was a gilded cage, and I was the one trapped inside. The lies I had told myself were the bars, and the realization of what I had done was the lock. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I couldn't live with the lie anymore. I needed to see Mark, to confront him, to understand why. I found him at a high-end bar celebrating a new business deal. He was laughing, surrounded by sycophants. He looked up, and his smile faltered when he saw me. "Mia," he said, a cold edge in his voice. "This is a surprise." "I know what you did, Mark," I said, my voice low and shaking with rage. "I know about the embezzlement. I know you framed John." He chuckled, a cruel, ugly sound. "And what are you going to do about it? You left him, Mia. You're the one who walked away when he needed you most. You have no moral high ground here." His words were like a dagger to the heart. He was right. I had no right to be angry, no right to demand justice. My own hands were dirty. He continued, his voice a sneer. "You wanted a life of luxury, didn't you? You didn't care about John. You cared about what he could give you. Don't pretend to be the hero now." I left the bar, my head spinning. The confrontation had not brought me any closure, only a deeper sense of my own complicity. Mark's words, a brutal and honest reflection of my own motives, echoed in my mind. He saw me for what I was, a self-serving opportunist. My world was crumbling, not because of outside forces, but because of the rot within me. John's case went to trial, and the evidence against Mark was overwhelming. The forensic accountant had built a solid case, and Mark was convicted. John was vindicated, his name cleared, his reputation restored. The little savings he had were returned to him, and he was able to rebuild his life. He and the accountant were now a couple, their bond forged in a shared quest for justice. They were happy. I, on the other hand, was not. The truth of my actions became public knowledge. My colleagues looked at me with thinly veiled contempt. The men I dated, once charmed by my ambition, now saw me as cold and calculating. The apartment in Manhattan, once a symbol of my success, felt like a prison. My real estate career began to suffer. I lost clients, and my once impressive numbers dwindled. The friends who had supported me through the divorce, now knowing the full story, began to distance themselves. I was isolated, alone, and haunted by the ghost of a man I had discarded. My perfect life was a lie, and the consequences of my choice were finally catching up to me. The loneliness was an ache that no amount of success or luxury could fill. 1 year later, I am sitting in the same apartment, but it no longer feels like mine. My career is in shambles. My friends are gone. I have a new life, but it's not the one I envisioned. It's a life of solitude, of quiet reflection. I see a picture of John on a social media post, taken by his new wife. He is laughing, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He looks genuinely happy, a happiness that has nothing to do with money or status. I look around my apartment, at the expensive furniture, the art on the walls. It is all meaningless. The only thing I have is the cold, hard knowledge of what I've lost. I remember that rainy day, John's slumped shoulders, and my hollow promise. I remember the cold calculation and the certainty of my decision. I thought I was making a wise choice, a move to secure my future, but what I didn't realize was that my true wealth wasn't in John's success or his money. It was in the simple, steady love he offered, the shared dreams, the unwavering loyalty. I had traded a life of true connection for one of material comfort, and in doing so, I had lost everything that mattered. I had built my kingdom on a foundation of lies, and now I was the only one left to rule over its ruins. I told my husband I'd never leave him, and in the end, my betrayal was a punishment I would have to live with for the rest of my life. Thank you for watching. If you were moved by this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful narratives like this one.